Hi, and welcome to Biteable Live. My name is Jared, and today I'm joined by Paul. Welcome, Paul.
Good morning. Pleasure to be on the internet with you.
Yes, you too. So, yes, good morning from us. For some of you, it's going to be horrendously late. For others, it's going to be the end of your workday. As always, Biteable, a global company. A lot of us just happen to be based from the land down under. So, welcome to everybody from wherever you're joining us. If you're live, please let us know. Drop, just a smiley face, or tell us what country or city you're from, so we can let everyone know how global we are. As always, we're live. We're looking for comments and feedback. So if you'd like your Biteable video featured in the wild at the end of this show, please drop the URL in the comments at the bottom and we'll pick that out for you. If you've got questions throughout, please drop them in. Rena, the producer, is behind the scenes as always, digging out those comments for us. So Paul and I will do our best to answer them in the second half of the show. But straight on to today's show, what we're going to be talking about. So today's show is all around storytelling and copywriting. And we're lucky enough to have Paul, who is our resident guru, copywriter, and storyteller with us to help us all become better storytellers. So I guess to get things started, Paul, what is storytelling?
Yeah, it's a good question. I guess the secret is in the name. It's basically telling a story. But the thing about storytelling is it's a really nice way to connect with people. And it also, I guess, as you and I are both in marketing and we're busy helping people trying to sell things through video, storytelling is a really nice way to connect with consumers and with customers in a way that steps around advertising and marketing. And it feels a lot more authentic, and it triggers very different responses in the people that listen to and hear stories.
It is, isn't it? I guess it's one of the oldest forms of communication. In some ways, it's the way that as a society, we've remembered so much is through stories.
Yeah, it's really how we communicate with friends as well. So if you get together with a friend, let's say in our context around the barbecue, then you're likely to share a story, and you share a story to trigger an emotional response in your friends as well. And I guess that's the sort of the power of the story, is the ability to help us relate something to our own world and our own life, and to inspire us.
Yeah, and I mean, as a marketer, one of my objectives is often to make something go air quote viral. And you can't go viral without a good story. You need the story to be able to tell.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think unless you've made a really, really good ad, but I think there's a greater chance that ad also has a story in it, would be the reason that people want to share it.
I think that's it, isn't it? Some of the great ads of all time have been the ones where it's an ongoing saga and you get to know the characters behind the ads.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think also, maybe that's also one of the beautiful things about stories is you talked about people would sit around the fire and share a story in the past. It's, I guess, in our modern context, we still want to share stories. And now that we live in such a digital, social media orientated world, the kind of things we need to tell people about our stories so that they'll share them and send them further.
Fantastic. So I guess, stories are obviously much more than just the once upon a times that we're talking about here. But, I think it's going to be important for everyone who's tuning in and everyone who listens to the video, watches the video afterwards. How can we take storytelling and use it for our businesses and in our marketing jobs every day?
Yeah, I guess the thing is we all have a lot of stories, but we might not realize it. So whatever your business is, you have a lot of inside expert knowledge about your business that the average person doesn't have. And to them, if you tell them about the things you do in your business, or the things you know about your business, or the industry that you're in, those are all really interesting stories for people.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite things for a business to do is really work on their origin story, and the origin story being, why are you in this business? Because I think it almost creates a baseline for everything else that you do and gives a hook for a potential customer to sort of buy into.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I guess there's probably two tangents we could go with today's live session. One would be talking about origin stories and sort of how you almost develop the myth of your brand, I guess. And how you present that. And then another tangent, which is probably more accessible and more actionable for anyone watching this this broadcast today, is more just a journalistic style of storytelling. So it's more the what, the who, the where, the why, just telling a simple story about something that that they can basically, I don't know, it's easy to create it's easy to share, and it's an interesting piece of information, or it's an interesting story that others wouldn't normally have access to.
So that's the structure that a journalist would follow when they were putting together a story?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, the most important facts are the what, the who, the where, and the why. There's a lot of different structures that they could choose. Maybe I'll give you a couple of examples of very easy stories that can be told. One would be like a profile. So you might introduce someone and then introduce a part of their life. Tell us something about, it might just be a moment in time, or it might be a larger story. You can explain how something works, which is also, I guess it's a very popular means of storytelling these days on social media. So you might explain how to do something, which could be as simple as a recipe. It might be explaining how something works, which could be far more complex. It can be anything almost. Another one, which is quite interesting, is to tell like a topical story. So anything that's current, anything that's trending, anything that people are very interested in at the moment. And another one might be like a day in the life. So then you might look at someone, let's say that you have a manufacturing plant, and you might go deep on a person who works in your manufacturing plant. You might tell their story. Their story might be the work they do, or it might be the things they do after work, anything that's personable.
Yeah, I think that makes a difference, doesn't it? I like the idea of a day in the life. It humanizes something. It allows people to sort of see the people behind a company, or a bit more about you. And I guess we're all human beings, we're emotional and relationship-led beasts. So we tend to bond if we can attach ourselves to a character or a person behind.
Yeah, definitely. I
Maybe
think
that's the objective of Biteable Live. It's hopefully people bond with us now. They can see there's faces and there's real people behind those awesome animations.
There's a lot of us behind the scenes. I guess they'll meet us all slowly, one by one.
That's my plan, dragging everybody out slowly, sticking them on Facebook, and
meet Biteable. I think, I guess also, I mean, it's in what you've just said. And these days, I think we're interested more in building relationships with brands and with products. So we're not so interested in maybe the bells and the whistles. So I bought a new microphone for this broadcast today. And when I bought the microphone, I wasn't so interested in like the precise features. I was far more interested in what it would do for me. And the thing that sold the microphone to me was the story that you told me about what it had done for you.
It's given me this fantastic Facebook Live voice that I didn't have before.
Exactly. So it's sort of like, I think we're all open to building relationships with the things in our lives, and stories are the way that we can build that relationship far more than traditional advertising, which is something which is more coming at us, let's say. And a story is more something that we absorb and make part of our lives.
Fantastic. Yeah. And I think going back to a point you made before at one of the styles around topic and picking a current topic, it's a great way to avoid that writer's block or inspiration, because, a lot of the people use Biteable are social media people, or they're running a social media page, and they're challenged with every day, how do I post something new? How do I come up with new content? So if you can take a topic that's current today and popular and trending, and you can somehow adapt that to your brand, you don't want to shoehorn it in there, but if you can create a parallel, at least that's inspiration for new copy, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think you made a good point there too. We're both making good points and telling each other we're making good points, which is also
doing well.
A good point for me. I think it's important also that you stay on brand. So assuming the people who are watching today have also watched the earlier broadcast we did about making a video which is on brand. I think you need to make content which is interesting, so it relates to the world of the people that you want to talk to. But you also have to sort of remain within the world of your brand, let's say. So if you're a more serious brand, then you might not be putting out like intense comedy. And if you're a lighthearted brand, then you might not be putting out a tearjerker. So it's also important to remember that what you make has to be of interest and be understandable to the people that are going to buy your products or are part of your world, let's say.
Yeah, and do you think, social media is a slightly less, it is a less formal, area. So if I'm on Facebook, if I'm on Twitter, it's less formal. Should brands strive with their copy to always be slightly less formal than maybe where they're scripted at a normal? So you could be, for example, a police station or a hospital or a school. Do you maybe go a little bit less formal when you're on social media than you would in other forms of communication?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I guess social media is really an informal space. I think you have to... I guess the personality of your brand has to be believable. So I guess with the example you've used, you have a very formal face if you're the police department. But when you're on social media or you're online, then you're probably more the police officer than the police department.
Yeah.
And so you still have to be professional, but at the same time, your guard is probably a lot more down and you're a lot more human than you would be otherwise.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting challenge for anyone. You might not be a copywriter by trade. Not everyone's got your experience, Paul, but we all ultimately are copywriters, whether we want to or not. Like, it's very rare that someone can live their life without writing copy for a business at some point in time.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's often known in the business as the white tiger, I guess, that empty piece of paper that you have to overcome. I think, it's always possible. It's really just a matter of when you've got something to talk about and you've got a reason to talk about it, then it's always far easier to write about it versus scratching your head and thinking, I just want to fill this page or this video, as the case may be.
And we'll segue that to why Biteable is so good, because someone like me who does sort of stare at a blank page, I can look at Biteable, and sometimes when I pick the right template and the right sort of scene stack, I'm looking at it and I go, oh, inspiration strikes, because I see a character, I see something, I go, now I know what I can say here. So, Biteable kind of helps me through that writer's block with my copywriting.
Yeah, definitely. Also, as a copywriter, I find Biteable helps me at times as well, because it's sort of like, oh, wow, I have these building blocks and I can put them together, and I've just created a story incredibly easily. So I think at whatever level you're working at, it's helpful to have pieces of your story already, or pieces that can be easily turned into a story, let's say.
Yeah, fantastic. So that's probably a good time now for you, because I think Paul's going to take us through some Biteable pre-built scenes and sort of talk about the story behind those.
Yeah, I thought I might give you a couple of examples. So, I mean, I think I'm imagining that most people watching this, I keep calling it a broadcast. I struggle for the words with live. People who are watching this live Facebook Live thing, I think everybody needs something actionable. And I'm sure after watching this today, they would love to be able to go and make a couple of videos. So I've had a look through the templates that we have living in Biteable, and I picked out a couple that I think are pretty good examples of storytelling, and are examples that you could use yourself really easily after this show. So I'm just going to share my screen, and we're going to cross our fingers that this goes well. Let's have a look. Okay, I'm now sharing my screen. Okay, now I think that's worked.
That looks good to me.
You should be seeing the Biteable homepage. That's some guy on a surfboard. So I'm just going to log into Biteable. And then once we're in, so if you've used Biteable, you're probably familiar with this screen. So I'm in my videos. And then if I hit the big cross over here for create a new video, then this takes me to a section. Hey, look, we're going to go live on Facebook. Thanks, Jared. This takes us to a section in Biteable where you can basically grab a template, and they're all templates that are really easy and quick to convert, quick to customize. I'm just going to go over to explain, and then explain my business or explain a concept. I'm going to go with explain a concept, and then find a template. And then you can see there's a series of templates in there. The one that I'm interested in over here is a little guy who's balding. Thinning hair sucks. Now, just to save us a bit of time, I've already got that here in my videos. And then I'm going to open him up. And then we can watch this one and we can talk about it at the same time. I've got the audio blasting over here, and unfortunately you can't hear it. Okay, I've got that turned off. So basically this is a little story about balding. And I think it's a story that most of us as men can relate to. And basically we've got a little character in there, that's Frank. Frank's leading us through the story. And this is the story of why we go bald, basically, and what we can do about it. And in a nutshell, we go bald just because we do. And what we can do about it, unfortunately, is nothing. But this is a humorous take, let's say, on balding. And it's a simple little piece of information that not everybody would have. So if I'm not exactly sure what kind of business would be sharing this, maybe a hairdresser with a humorous take on life. Or just any business that maybe has someone in it who's balding. But it's basically a little story that you can share. It's information that not everybody has. It has an arc. It takes you through. It slowly reveals more information. And the intention is that it keeps you interested from start to finish.
fantastic.
So that one's in there. Shall I run you through? We'll do one more.
Yeah, here we've got time, so that's good.
Another kind of story that you might like to tell. This is also along the same lines of sharing something that not everybody has access to. So this is basically writing tips. So you were talking earlier about writing. This one also relates to that. These are 5 tips for easy writing or great writing. And these tips aren't just from anyone. These are from Hemingway, who's like one of the greatest writers of all time, and a writer that I would aspire to be as good as one day. It won't happen though. And this is Hemingway's 5 tips for writing. And basically, we're working through the tips, and it's revealing to us how we can be a better writer. It's got a slightly humorous angle to it as well. So it gives us Hemingway's rule and then a little bit more information afterwards to explain it to us. Hemingway's last tip was a funny one. And basically, if you want your business to be a knowledge holder about writing and improving writing, then this is the kind of video that you would share.
It's fantastic.
So I'll probably leave it at those 2 videos.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Thank you so much for those. And I think, look, those and that last scene stack there is absolutely fantastic for the way that the countdown works. It's really logical. You can see, there's going to be an end to what you're doing. So it allows the user to kind of get a real sense of, or the viewer to get a real sense that we're counting down. It's a story. It's going to have an ending. Because I think that's one of the battles we have when we do video marketing is. So it's stressing, I guess, you look at your statistics and people only watch the first 10 seconds of a video. So the countdown, it just sort of says to someone, we're not going to be here forever. I've got a message. I'm going to deliver it, and then I'm going to go. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I mean, really the most important thing is probably the amount of time that you have to engage a viewer. And I mean, it's anywhere between probably 3 and 8 seconds, depending on who you talk to. And so probably one of the most important parts of your video is going to be the opening or the hook. And you really got to have something at the start that inspires people to stick around and watch the rest of your content.
Fantastic. So we might go back to our big heads if you want to stop sharing your screen, Paul.
Yeah, definitely. I'll try.
That's all right. And while I'm there, I'll have a quick look through some of the comments. So who have we got? We've got shout out to Edwin, who's all the way from, well, I say all the way. I mean, he's in Peru. So welcome, Edwin. Great to have you along. So, the reason why I'm doing this is have a look through for some questions. If you've got questions for Paul, now's the chance to drop it in. You've got a chance to ask one of the great copywriters of the world.
Thank you, Jared.
Questions, so take advantage of it. Drop a question in. Let us know what you want. We'll do the best to answer that. At the same time, if it's a general Biteable question, we'll attempt to answer it as well. Francesca asks a really easy one for us, which is what are both of our titles? Well, it's an interesting one. I think recently my title's changed to marketing strategist, which for my goal is to find new ways for Biteable to conduct marketing, like, for example, Biteable like Facebook Live, which also means that I'm the guy that ends up sitting on this side of the camera. So that's my title. And that's what I do. Paul, what's your glorious title at Biteable?
Yeah, I wonder. We're very flat at Biteable. So none of us really have too prestigious a title, let's say, which I quite like. So I'm a copywriter. I'm probably one of the more senior copywriters here. And I think my title at the moment is head of content, I believe.
Hey, you got a head. There's no directors of. We haven't got any sort of C title. Well, there's a CEO, but that's more just to keep the board happy. I don't think there's many other people kicking around with C-suite titles. Or maybe
no. I think the nice thing also about Biteable is it's very small and the lines are very short, and we all work together quite intensely. So it's more really about making things happen together than really telling each other what to do.
Fantastic. I'm just going to run through. Beverly asks if there's any more claymation scenes on the horizon. I'm not 100% sure. There will. I think there's a good chance. It pretty much comes down to demand and how much scenes are used. So the more people are using them, the more likely we are to build particular types of scenes. I know the claymation scenes are particularly popular. Paul, do you have any insights onto claymation, whether that's on the horizon?
Don't, unfortunately. I know that we have a studio of 4 people who are, and also a lot of freelancers who work with them as well. And they're dedicated basically just to creating new studio content for us. And I know they're always pretty busy over there. At the same time, I know the claymation stack it's very popular, but I'm not sure if there's any plans at the moment to add new content.
Brilliant. So I'm going to quick look through. I'll say hi to Ricky because he said hi to us. Nazarene, good night. She's going off to bed. And we've got Michelle, who has got up early in Melbourne, Australia, so local to us. So hi to Michelle. Going through, I'll have to have a look. Oh, sorry for Jeremy, who's, it's late at night in the UK. We're moving the times around. So we do our best. We'll change it all the times. So I'm just going to quickly look through. While I do look at those comments, I'm going to ask just a couple of questions for you, Paul. This is my personal question that I wanted to ask you, and it's entirely around capital letters in copy. Yeah. So I, first and foremost, I guess I'm a search engine marketer. That's my trade, my school, if I get the tools out. And in AdWords, we tend to capitalize the first letter of every single word that we write.
Yes.
And then occasionally we go nuts and we capitalize every letter of a word. Are there some rules of when we should not be capitalizing our letters in our copy?
Yes, capitalization is a real bed bug in English. It's a tricky one. I guess there's different approaches. The approach that I like the most is just to use sentence case. So an example would be the Biteable homepage, where you'll see that the titles, they have a capital at the start of the sentence, but that's the only place. Another approach is to use, title capitalization. So where you would only capitalize the most important words in the sentence, which is, I guess, grammatically correct. Sorry about that. And then there's what you're talking about, which is what we see on Google, which as a copywriter, it breaks my heart a bit, but I understand how it works, where every letter gets capitalized. And then the intention there, I think, is just to, I don't really know how it works, actually. I think it creates slightly more impact to capitalize every first letter in the title. And then capitalizing every letter in a word, I would say, is generally a bit of a no-no, because it always feels like someone's shouting at you, and nobody wants to be shouted at.
Yeah. Brilliant. So I was going to say thanks to Mario, who's sending out his love for Biteable.
I might just chip in at the end there, actually, Jared. What I should have said was if you have to choose, so obviously depends on where you're writing as to the kind of capitalization you'll choose. But I think in general, if you have a website and if you have maybe a product on the web, the simplest thing in life is to choose to go with a sentence case, because you can never get it wrong and you'll always be able to use the same thing in every situation. The only thing to remember is when you are writing your titles for Google, for your SERPs, then capitalize the first letter of every word so that you fit in with what everybody else is doing in that context.
Yeah, it's one of those ones where you're led by the click-through rate. And if it gets more clicks, you just kind of do whatever gets the most amount of attention and gets your head above everybody else, then you tend to follow it. So
yeah, exactly. You can always experiment with standing out and doing the opposite. But if it doesn't get you the clicks, then you might need to avoid it.
True. So a question from Beth, who's asked us, will there be an option to move the wording around on the video? Do you want to take that one, Paul? I don't think that's an option at the moment.
No, it's not. I don't know how much to reveal, to be honest, Jared.
It's a highly requested feature. The tech gurus that sit in the same office as Paul, I think, are playing around with ideas to make that work. So I guess
maybe I can put a little teaser in there, let's say. So the engineering team here in this office is very busy at the moment with a beta release, which we'll have more information about in the future. That beta release will make things like this possible, but I'm talking about beta and I'm talking about not yet released. So this is more watch this space kind of stuff.
Fantastic. Howie Abraham asked, will they be able to extend scenes in the future? Look, the answer is In the future, yes, you'll be able to do that, because in the future with Biteable, you'll be able to do almost anything. So again, watch the space. Rena covered this really well on the first episode, which was, we had a few different ideas, but one thing you can do with a lot of scenes is it's quite easy to make them loop. So, again, with copywriting, and this ties together, there's a real talent. Like, it's sometimes you want to make a scene last for longer. You can make the same scene loop around, or maybe just add a second scene. So look, we do need to add the flexibility to the product, but at the same time, take the challenge on and try to get your copywriting tight. And if you're trying to say two things on one scene, maybe think about a second scene. You want to be simple, right?
Yeah, we actually had some feedback from a teacher recently, and she was saying for her students, she finds Biteable really useful because it teaches them to write concisely. So I think it's a big takeaway is that where you can, if you write a sentence, if there's any way to take something out of that sentence and then still retain the power of what you're saying, then you generally should.
Fantastic. We've got a question from Sung Park, who's asked, is there any rule of thumb for coming up with a great headline, Paul?
Rule of thumb for a great headline. So we're talking about the hook, I guess, and the opening scene of our video. Well, this is one of the three things actually that I wanted to leave you with today, and one of them is the hook. I think basically you want to incite emotion, and the easiest ones are probably shock and surprise. So you could open with a strong statement, something which is familiar, let's say. So it's obviously within the world of the person that you're talking to, but at the same time, it's foreign enough or it's shocking enough to incite interest. Another approach might be to ask a question, and by asking that question, people will realize that they don't know the answer, and so then they'll want to watch your video and slowly find out the solution to that problem. But essentially, anything that will engage is a great start, and that will really depend on what you're talking about, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, for me as a marketer, I'm often trying to solve the person's problem. So what I'm hoping to do is, you've got the first goal, right, in copywriting is to get their attention. And so maybe you have to say something a little bit crazy, but if you're watching a video, there's a good chance, it depends on the context of the video, right? If you're trying to get someone's attention because they're scrolling through a Facebook feed, yeah, it's got to be something, wow, it's got to pop, maybe a bit shocking, maybe a bit out there. If they're on the website, if they're on your website watching more of a explain a story video, then I guess really what you're trying to do is move really quickly into that interest and desire phase, where you're trying to develop real interest in the story that you're telling and create some desire into whatever the message is that you're trying to get across the line.
Yeah, exactly. It probably depends a bit on the story you're telling as well. So if you're telling a story about a product, then you probably really want to relate that to the problem that it solves and how that improves someone's life, or show it improving someone else's life. If your story is more general, then it is probably, I don't know, a bit less so than what we were discussing.
Fantastic. I think my Australian internet connection went a little bit crazy there for a second. So hopefully if that glitched, apologies. That's what you get for going live. If you didn't see anything, that didn't happen and my internet didn't slow down. So, so last question, because I've got the control, and I thank you to everyone, I should say, for all the questions online. You can see me scrolling through them there. So as always, if you've got questions, do drop them in there. If you're not watching this video live, still do drop them in. We will attempt to respond to them online. Thanks to all the people that throw us a little thumbs up. All those little emoticons flying up the screen warms our hearts and makes us feel like we're important and valued. So one more question from me, and then we will jump to Biteable in the wild before we finish up. So I just wanted to ask around active and passive voices. And the reason why is I don't really know the difference between the two, except that when I'm using a tool like Grammarly to check what I'm writing, it's always telling me that I'm writing in a passive voice. Is that good? Is that bad? What is it? Should I avoid it in my copywriting? All of those things, answer it in 30 seconds.
Grammarly is right. You generally want to use an active voice. An active voice has subject and object. I actually struggle to explain grammatical things when someone asks me on the fly. Basically, an active sentence is one which will feel far stronger than a passive one. Just Google active versus passive and you'll get the great grammatical explanation. I have to tell you, at the same time, I'm trying to find the video that we're going to show in the wild, which is buried somewhere in my Slack. So I'm just going to have a quick dig for that at the same time. I'm a little bit disorganized.
Fantastic. I'll talk myself. So just shout out to who else have we got in there? Beth. Thanks for joining us. Who else have we got on? Mario. I might have mentioned you already, Mario, but if I didn't, there you go. Lots of love for all the people saying they love Biteable. Thank you so much. We do appreciate it. If you'd like your video featured on Biteable in the wild, if you've got one on your website, on YouTube, on Facebook, throw the link into the comments here, and we'll highlight it here and hopefully and on our social media for you, and give you a little bit of love. And hopefully, if we all share our videos together, we can learn together.
So I found that video, Jerry. Can I share that with you now?
Yeah, please do.
Okay, I'll just share my screen. And here we go. Okay, so this is a little video put together using Biteable. I'm just going to have to turn my audio off on my side. So this is basically telling us. Sorry, can you see that? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So this is made by a group called 50s Plus Lifestyle, a Biteable customer, and they've made this basically for their audience to share. Imagine that you're 50 plus, or you know someone who's 50 plus, and they're going to be flying. And flying might be intimidating, or it might be something they don't normally do. And they're basically telling the story of how to overcome your flight. So this is basically like life hack or insider tips about how you can travel in a plane and actually enjoy it.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I am on a flight early tomorrow morning, and so the only thing this doesn't cover is what I'm going to do with my 5-year-old son. It should have had one more tip that said, download Netflix movies onto iPad, buy headphones, and pray.
Definitely. I think that sounds like a good story for you to share.
Okay. We don't need to watch How to Fly in Business Class free on the next video. I love the way YouTube does that. It's like, now that we've got you here.
I'm gonna stop sharing my screen now. So
Fantastic. Well, brilliant. Well, look, thanks so much for joining us and I guess improving our copywriting today, Paul. I appreciate it. It's not easy to go live on Facebook, so thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. If anyone has any more questions, I mean, we certainly didn't cover everything about storytelling today. So any questions, throw them in the comments and I'll get back to you personally.
Yeah, and as always, press the little bell icon on Facebook there to get alerts each time we go live. We're going to do this for as long as people give us, emoticon love, great questions, great videos to talk about. So that's it from us. Thank you very much for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you on Facebook Live next time. Thanks so much.